Hey everybody, my name is Thomas. I'm with the New Boston Trading Company, which is a business that operates exclusively on the E2 platform. Want to shoot a quick video today showing my process or my daily run through of how we manage our properties and what we're doing as we participate in the ecosystem. Hopefully this is helpful to other people out there and give me a discussion as to how you're best managing your properties. Would love to get your thoughts, comments, and feedback as you see my process and either identify something I might be doing wrong or something that hopefully this video might help you with appropriately. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, the very first step that I do each day is I actually go through and I claim my, ether and make sure that we're getting that taken care of, taking that, not letting anybody have the chance to raid that. We've been doing this every day for several months now, so we got the nice purple for the boost there. That's been fun. But then the second part of that step, or step B to that, is then we go to the resources and just make sure that we've claimed all of the jewels. So we already claimed it for today, but that would then be the next step. So step 2 then of what we do on a daily basis is we then go to the profile, and I like to see how much ether did I really have come in the day before. Now this is set to an all-time time frame with a weekly date frequency. And I like to look at this because then it gives me kind of the week over week trend. It also gives me the average of the total that I hit for the previous week. And if I know that we were just a shade under 4,000 ether, between cydroids, civilians, and the properties I have dedicated for creating our sales in the marketplace, then I can plan appropriately. Sometimes I also look at the daily effort though, and just see how we're trending. Overall, we're up, but if we look at the week, it's been kind of a weird little downward trend. Had an all-time high of almost 611 a couple days ago, and then chugging along but kind of falling off. So this is just helpful in terms of how are we progressing and what ether flow, what might we be looking at as we move forward. So after then, as we take our market, after we look at the ether, next thing I like to do then is I like to go to the marketplace and then see what the buying or the levels are for both cydroids and civilians. Now I've got a little spreadsheet that you're not going to see on this video, but it calculates the average prices for all of the civilians for both Space Force and Rebels. And then given that it takes 115 ether to create a cydroid versus 25 for a civilian, and based on their price, it can tell me, is it more lucrative to build cydroids that day, or is it more lucrative to synthesize civilians? So based on that, then it gives me kind of a direction for the day of what we are going to do. So in this case, I'll just kind of do both, so you get a sense of what that might look like. So given that we think today it's going to look like that we're better off doing civilians, we would then go to our raid management, and I've got prefixes that I put on the properties I'm using specifically for this, both MBV for New Boston Ventures and then NBC for New Boston Civilians. And then I'll go through and I will price out any of the new civilians that have synthesized or come online that day. Now, if it's at the start of a new day, or if I have existing civilians on here from the day previous, I will delist them and then reset them at a price. Usually it's about a 24-hour sales cycle. Very rarely, if you're putting the price in at the list price that the market has it, will you see that civilians stay longer, especially raid commanders, especially Egyptian gods. So then we would go through and just not only price out or list all the ones that have come online for both sets of then the properties appropriately, but then we would then go to the cydroid side if we're all filled up on the civilian, and then start building cydroids appropriately from the raid cycle, because obviously you're not going to build from here or whatnot, but you go from there. So we start production on civilians, we start production on droids as appropriate, and then based on our ether and essence, we'll then top off appropriately. When all is then said and done, if I still have ether left over, then I will transform it into essence just as a holding spot for it, because I think it's a little bit more valuable with things coming up. So then once we've done the top off, Next step we're going to do is we're going to go to the raid, and we're going to start having all of the droids who are ready to dispense start getting the ether that they've raided out. In this case, we've already done that, so there's nothing to dispense. But I'm of the mind that I would rather have the essence as soon as I can get it. So if a cydroid is not completely full, I'm not going to send it out again. I want to get that out because ideally I'm producing civilians. I'm building droids for sale in the marketplace. So that's why I take that off right there. So if there are any droids that are ready to dispense, we do that. Then the next step is we go to the idle cydroids, and then we start sending them out. Now, in this case, you see this NBC-18. That's a property that I just use explicitly for building civilians and droids, so I'm not going to send him out. But any droid that's in that green, I'm going to go through, and I won't show you it for all of them, but for these raids, I'll just simply go to the auto raid and see then if they have the same number as the level raid commander. So in this case, NBL-019 is an L3, meaning level 3 raid commander. I want to make sure that we have the 3 right here. So in that case, we do. We're going to go ahead and hit that, and then hit raid. My fat head is in the way here, so we'll do that. We'll make sure we have unclaimed, promised essence. We do, so we're going to hit raid. And then that's the process we then do for all of our droids that are then idle in that regard. So then once that piece is done from that perspective, the next thing we're going to do is make sure that all the properties we have with raid commanders of level 5 or 6, they're operating at full capacity. So in this case, I have a identifier called L8 that I put on properties, and so I'll use this one. It's called 059 Adalar L8. And in this regard, I'm going to go to the raid. And what I'm looking for, get off there, is does this property itself, if it's on auto raid, does it have at least 5, or is every single property that's near it accounted for? So in this case, Adalar, we only have 3 sheets of property, but I've gone through and marked them up appropriate as, do they have dedicated or unclaimed ether? Are they zeroed out, or are they tier 2? So every single property is accounted for, and I just need to do spot checks to make sure that it's still running through appropriately. So that's what I do with all of the properties that are marked as L8, and again, L8 means they have a raid commander that's at full capacity, and so we're just trying to make sure that we can go through and get as many of those as possible. Now on this one, this is a little bit bigger, so I'll explain this real quick. We've got 9 droids on this property, and there's over 1,000 pages of property that we can technically raid. For this guy though, we're looking between 5 and 10 sheets of properties for it to get to that L8 status, meaning it's just on autopilot, it's running on its own. We don't need to increase the rating at all. There are other tier of properties that I have that are that I call L7, which have a raid commander level 6 or higher, but they're not at that full capacity. So in this case, like if I look at this one called Valengi, which is a mining resource property. I got some ether there. So in this case, we'll start this guy, but we've got 4 properties or 4 droids that are out raiding. So in this instance, what I would actually do is I'd abort their mission, bring them all back in, and then if I go to the auto raid, I see that we've got 7 sheets, so we're almost ready to move this one to L8. I'd probably like to get this property to about 10 sheets. But then as each one of those properties come in, I am sending it to a property that I've identified. So this, basically, does it have unclaimed ether? Is it tier 1 but no ether left, or is it tier 2? And then I just go find the properties that aren't there. So in this case, I also have a declaration. So this P515 size, meaning that I'm sorting it by property size, and I'm on page 15. Actually, I think it's a little bit later there. But basically, I'm just going through and I say, okay, I've got this property here. I'm looking up here, it's T2. Okay, we don't want to do those, or I don't like doing those, so we're going to give them the pine tree. and then we're going to move on to the next one. So this guy here, he's tier 1, but there's nothing left, so I'll go ahead and mark him with a heart. So then that way when I'm going through, I have a property ready to go. I just find the next heart, I double click it to get it to the lotus, and then the lotus is the indicator that it's going off, and that we're then rating that one on a consistent basis. So again, that's what we then do for the L7s, and try to get the sheets of properties that they're rating on a continual basis between 5 and 10, based on what we're trying to do with it appropriately. And then as I have properties as I have droids for my L7 properties coming in and out, because I've got, say, 5, 9, 10, 12, 16. I've got 16 droids that I'm, bulking up their automated raid run at the moment. The next thing that I would actually do while I'm in between runs is I would go to the resources tab, and then make sure that my jewel situation is optimized or moving towards optimization. So in this case, I just know that every property I've added this J indicator to means that the jewels are optimized for what they are looking, or for what I want them to do, or at an appropriate level, so that I just move down, appropriately. And I like to have the jewels on there because obviously with adding jewels to some of the cydroids I pulled from the properties that I had. So better than to go back through and make sure, do we have them all represented, but then is the right resource there. So that's then what I do. And then really the last step I have on a daily basis, if I've made it this far, if I have some extra time to work on the properties, is I'll then flip out raid commanders. So for example, if I go here, if I sort by raid commander experience, and we're going to go this way, what I try to do is I want to find them where it's going to have the most impact. So, like, let's see right here. This, he's a C4. This is an R3. This is a raid commander, 4th level. That's okay. But, like, what I would then look at is, here's a better idea. I've got this raid commander. He's a level 4 right now, but he's at a property called Akpakwa. And what I would look at is, are they around a lot of properties, and are they close? Because if they are, then that would be a situation that could ramp up a lot of raids. And so then I'd be, looking at, can I sell this civilian who's at a level 3? Can I essentially flip this, or a level 4 in this case? Can I flip this one out and then get a level 5, so I can get way more raids on a daily basis squeezed out of this one? Normally, what I try to do is sometimes I'll just kind of do it by, if I have a property in my mind that I'm like, I want to see more out of there, I can do it that way. The other option, and I've started doing this a little bit more, is sort your properties by the number of cydroids that they have, and then flip out your raid commanders from there. So if I've got a property that has 4 droids, but for some reason it's only got a level 3 raid commander, then I would flip that one out and figure that one out next. So that's it. That's my daily basis for what we do. Hopefully this has been helpful to everyone in terms of showing you what someone else on E2 is doing on a daily basis to make between $4 and $6 a day. It's not money we're going to retire on, but it's enough to have some fun and play the game a little bit. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have questions, comments, or whatnot, would love to see them in the comments below. I'm just doing this for the community to see if there's other people out there, what they think, what they like, what they don't like. If you have suggestions or things you do differently, would love to hear that as well too. I've done things wrong before. I'm always trying to figure out what I can do better or different in the future. So I would love to see some ideas or suggestions.